So welcome everyone to the season of summer drawing. This is sponsored by the Friends of Warminster Library. So I always like to thank the Friends for doing these, for sponsoring these programs. Um, Love that we are still able to use Zoom and no one has to leave their house. It's nice. And when you're done, you can just get off and go on about the rest of your evening. My name is Anita Thompson. I own Art Venture Workshops. I'm a mobile-based artist. I teach all ages, mostly in libraries, and I love it. I fell into it by accident about 8 years ago, and I love it. So tonight, as you see, oh, beautiful, John Paul. John Paul already made his rectangle. Yeah, the first thing that we want to do, if you have access to a ruler or some sort of piece of paper that you can, make straight lines with, you want to make a border for your drawing. So on my border, and actually, let me grab my ruler over here. I have a really long one. My border is about, it's actually less than an inch around, but you can make it as big as you want. But basically, my rectangle on a 5 by 7 inch piece of paper, there's probably an easier way to like figure this out. So my drawing is literally 5 3/4 and almost like 3 3/4 as far as how big it is, but you can make it as big or as small as you like. I'm just going to kind of hand draw in my rectangle. So that is our first step to create that rectangle. You do want to make sure that you have room in your border because we have some elements in the drawing that stick out beyond the border, meaning the border of the drawing. Okay, I think that's pretty okay. Not too bad for not using the ruler. Sometimes I'm better at it than other times. Okay, just writing myself a little note to Warminster. I have to tell them how many people showed up online. Okay, so after this, we're now going to start off using our pencil. It's easier to draw with the pencil. You want to make sure that you're going lightly as you draw each element, and then we will go over it in our orange. You're welcome to use more than an orange pencil. You're also welcome to use, you don't have to do it for while we are in session. Oh yeah, sorry, close up, please. But some people actually do a little more with the drawing afterward or finish it up or redo it. So you're welcome to do that. So Debbie asked for a close-up. It's always nice to have a little bit more of a close-up in order to draw it. So if you would like to take a picture, you can do so now. Throughout the instruction, I'll also be zooming in on parts of the drawing. Let me know if you need to get it again, Debbie, or anybody else. And I am going to now zoom in a little more. And maybe that will also make it a little easier for you. I'm also going to add a little bit more light on here. Actually, no, it's better with the contrast. All right, thanks, Debbie. Perfect. Okay, so we're going to get started with the sunflower. So we've got a sunflower pretty much in the middle of our drawing here. And so we're going to go down probably about halfway down our drawing, and we're going to make the center of the sunflower. So we're going to make the round part of the sunflower here. So as always, I draw darker so that you can see it. And I'm going to make sort of a circle-like shape, but also paying attention to how the inside of the sunflower is kind of, well, it's not wavy, but it looks wavy because the all of the, I almost said the leaves, the petals are, the way that they're falling coming from the center of the sunflower. We're also going to make that other part in the sunflower that is in the center of it. So right now it's going to look a little bit like an egg, like a scrambled egg. I'm going to make this part a little bit longer because it's a little bit further down than I drew it. So I'm just correcting that right now. And I'm also going to go a little closer again. There we go. Okay. So continuing on, we're now going to start creating the petals. And so the petal shapes. So I'm going to zoom in on this sunflower really close. If anybody wants to take a picture of it, you're welcome to. The reason I'm zooming in is just so that you can see there's a lot of petal work going on here, right? We've got lots of, larger ones, but lots of smaller ones. And so we're just going to create the shapes of those. And then obviously later on we go back and we make them look a little more realistic or a little more like the petals. So you can get the general shape down without all the detail. So let's start up at the top here. And what we're going to do is we're going to start with the bigger petal and sort of the bigger petals that are kind of in the back. And then we will add on it's really the 3 smaller petals here. We have one here that's kind of curling, one here, but you get the idea. We're going to start off with the bigger petals. And so we're going to come over to the sort of right side of the sunflower, and we'll make that first petal. You can also adjust the size later on if you feel like it's too big. So we're going to work around the right side. We have a shape here of sort of a petal that is kind of turning. So we're going to go like this with it. We're going to continue. And this shape is sort of the entire shape of these 2 petals. And so then we can go back, because they're so close together, we can go back and make them more separate. Just let everybody catch up. Our next petal here is sort of round-ish at the bottom, and then it kind of comes out, a bit pointy. We do have a petal behind it. And always remember, it doesn't have to look exactly like mine if for whatever reason your petals are larger or smaller or thicker and you had to add less or more, that's okay. As long as it looks pretty much like a sunflower, we're good. Okay, so we now have this one, right? That's kind of behind here. And again, we have a little bit of the curving of the sunflower end. And so I'm going to start it over here. And then the end of it is right near this pointed area. And then we kind of make a cylinder like so. Now, if you've noticed, I haven't added any of the center lines in the petals. We'll go back and do that later. We're just trying to work around here. And so now what we want to start doing, we're going to start having the petals kind of interfering, if you will, with the center shape. And what I mean by that is, for instance, like we have this one that the reason that I started making, the inside not so perfectly round because the curve of the bottom of the petal kind of goes over the shape. So that's going to happen right here. So just a little bit, right? So I'm going to curve that shape, make it a little more pointy. It has to go down a little more. There we go. And then I erase the line that was once the center of the sunflower right here, so that now that petal is in front of it. And we're going to keep going around. We have the next one that is sort of doing the same thing. This one is a bit bigger. And we're going to keep going around. Pay attention to the shapes. We have some other, another petal down here that is from the next flower. If you want to kind of draw that in right now, you can. I'm doing that right now. So that shape is going to be sort of like this. And we can fix that or whatever we need to do to it later on. But basically, I'm now going around to meet up with the other side of the sunflower. So I'm drawing other petals behind. The ones that I'm waiting for are the ones that are going to be, we'll add the ones in the front after we draw most of these main ones and the ones sort of in the back. Also, the next petal that I'm drawing here is a petal that is flipped over. So we sort of see, well, we do see the underside of it. So you can draw the overall shape at first, and then add your, the other part to it. We have a few more of those on this side. We have one right next to it, and that's going to be the first one that breaks our border, meaning our drawing border. Ever so slightly.
Could you please slow down, please?
Sure, absolutely. Thank you for that reminder, John Paul. And if anybody else has any questions or suggestions, you can unmute or put in the chat as well. Take an overall look right now, use this time to take an overall look of how you're doing on your spacing. Again, you can always go back and readjust. And then our next petal here is also going to break the border. And we see a lot of the inside of the petal. That's right here. I just shaded it to show you. And then we're going to start where we have some of those little petals, kind of at the bottom of some of the bigger ones. That's one of the first. Okay, so we are now finishing up the last bunch of petals here. So we have one that is right behind here. And here again, it's breaking the border. So this is the one I'm talking about here. This shape. So it's kind of roundish at the bottom, right? It's up against the other one. And then we come back down. And then from that, we can actually start making two of the smaller petals here. And we have three more petals. One, two, three. And this one kind of wraps around. Okay, so we have two smaller ones, well, ones that are sort of hidden a bit. So like that. Here's the other one. Basically, we use the line, like half a line for each one. And then we're going to create this one. And later we will put in front of it our other flower. But for now, we're going to make this petal. Again, it's kind of, the petal is kind of turning over, so we make a line like this. I'm going to make this a little darker so you can see it. And we're going to start now going below. I feel like this drawing in the series that I've done, I basically did the 4 seasons with these drawings. There's another one for fall. But I feel like this one is one of the simpler ones. There's less going on in the background, more flowers. But I'll let you be the judge. So we're going to come down here towards the bottom left corner, right? And we have, again, I always like to preface this by saying I sort of make up my own flowers. I don't look off of anything. So this is kind of rose-like.
What do you
Uh,
think?
oh, wow. Beautiful. I love your line work. Very nice. So a lot of my flowers look sort of rose-like. I mean, this one for sure, definitely a rose. But I think I called this one a rose too in this corner, bottom left corner. And so what we're gonna do, right? We see that the total shape fits around here. So if you want, you can make an oval, right? Like an oval shape. Now we want to think about, right? So what we're doing is we're kind of making an overall shape to fit in all the individual details of that flower when I say that we're making the overall shape. And so, I'm going to it's kind of oval-like, but that doesn't mean that I can't draw things outside of that shape. And then we're going to create the shape for the leaf. That's kind of, again, breaking the border. Let me move this over. Breaking the border, right? Curving. Like so. And then you can erase the border line because that leaf is going to go around it or through it, right? So that's about the shape of our leaf. Oops. And now we're going to go back to basically our oval shape. And, I'd also like to point out if you enjoy doing flowers and say you have a picture of flowers that you've taken or something, what's really, what makes it easier to draw it is to look at the center of the flower and the overall shape, like what we're doing here, especially when it's a flower that has lots of petals coming out. And so we're going to do that now. We have the overall shape, but now I can see that there's a circle shape here. So that's going to help break it down. And I want to make sure that my circle shape is put in the correct spot or just about so that I can also draw things outside of it, right? So here is the circular shape that I'm seeing here, right? And then we can go inside and start to break that shape down, right? We have another circle. So I'm just kind of trying to show you how to break down a flower. Right now it looks like an eyeball on the side with an eyelid. That's so funny. See that? And now there is another sort of petal in here, right? Inside that shape. And now we can work outward, right? So we kind of got the center done. And then we can work outward, right? We have a long shape, long petal here. Actually, that's a little closer here. And pay attention to where the other shapes start. But at least for me, it makes it easier to look at a flower and start creating the other petals. So I'm going around on the left side. Here's the one shape here of the petal. Have to make my leaf a little bit smaller. Here is another shape of another petal. And we have a small one over here. And then you can just erase the other lines that you used to construct the overall shape. So as you go, I'm going to make this just a little bit thinner in the middle. But if you get the overall shape down, you then can go back in and make it look more like it does from where you're copying it from. Here's another petal, right? And it's starting to now take shape. It doesn't just look like this confusing blob. So we have our other petal here. And then finally a big one right here. And then I'm going to erase inside those shapes because I don't need those lines anymore. I'm going to let everybody get caught up. And if you need to adjust. So what I'm also going to do now, I created this petal here, right? And I'm now going to adjust it because I want it to come down a bit from here. So I didn't make it big enough because it should be touching the other one, this rose. And so I'm just going to adjust it. Oh, Jean is coming in. Hi, Jean.
Me.
Hello.
Okay, so I need white paper, not color paper, correct?
Correct. I'm going to
Okay.
see. I'm so glad you joined us.
No, I'm excited to be here.
Yay. So I just put the information in the chat.
Okay.
Um,
Please have.
I'm just going to mute you just because we are recording.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, Beautiful, John Paul. Oh yeah, very nice. Very nice rose. And so we started first with a rectangle, a long rectangle, Jean. And if you have a ruler, you can use that. And then we started with the sunflower. Yeah, and this is being recorded, so if you need to go back, you will get the recording. And so what I'm doing is I'm just sort of reshaping the previous petal here from the sunflower. Okay. And then we're going to get started with the daisy. So the other thing is, if you want to do it in, in another order, you could, right? Like Jean, who has just come on, Jean, if you want to, continue where we're going, where I'm illustrating, you can, just remember to sort of make, you
What
can
about
make
the
like
leaf at the rose?
the
Did you
lever,
did
the
you
lever.
finish a leaf of a rose?
Oh, not yet. Not yet, but we're going to go into the daisy first.
Okay.
But we will come back, I promise.
All right.
Thank you for keeping me on track, John Paul. I appreciate it. I love it. Sometimes you have to reel me in, and I thank you. I get a little crazy. But we're gonna continue with that. But for now, we're going to draw the daisy over here. At least this is my version of a daisy. I feel like this is daisy-like. Someday I'm going to study flowers but first birds. I'm really interested in birds, right? So the flowers are going to have to take a back seat, although maybe they will also be with the birds because, birds and flowers to me go together. I don't know. Okay, so basically, we're going to start again in the middle, right? And so we're going to make sure, oh, Terry's coming on too. We're going to make sure that we have the cylinder in the middle. And hi, Terry. So happy that you are here too. I'm going to recopy the information in the chat. We're recording, so I have everyone muted, but I just put down all the information in the chat. So we're going to come here, bottom right corner, and we're going to create the inside of our daisy. You're going to make sure to leave space for the petals. You can always adjust this shape later on. I'm going to make this just a little bit thicker on this side. All right, so it's sort of oval shaped. It actually is oval shaped. And then we're going to start creating the petals coming from that. And so I'm starting here at the bottom, starting with this shape. And this time we're going to go around this way, right? We're going to go around clockwise. So, and if you like, if this helps you, you can draw a light line in the middle of your petal at this stage. So again, we're here. We're now going to go here. And so this is where we're going to have some overlap, right? This petal is behind the petal of the rose. As long as that fits for your drawing. If it doesn't, you can just adjust. You can make, more petals, less petals. But we're basically now going around to each of these petals, right? So we know that this one is a little smaller. The next one is even smaller, but it's kind of curving at the end and the top. And I will make the little lines to separate so that you can tell. And then we have another shape that is a little more like, sort of like the sunflower petal, a little bit. And then our shapes start to turn a little bit, our petal shapes. I'm just going to let everybody catch up. And so we're going to start going around, right? And mine is starting to break the border a little bit. So I might make my border a little bit bigger because I don't feel like adjusting everything at this point. And you are welcome to do the same. Maybe I should have used my ruler.
I,
Okay, so we're going to keep going around here. So we are now working on the rest of these petals, right? So we have this one, right? And this is where our petals are starting to turn. And one of them at least is breaking the border here. You know what? It could be, Christine. I make up these flowers. So I don't look off of anything. So if it looks like freesia, you can absolutely make yours be freesia. It sounds like you know flowers much better than I do. Let's say it is. I like that. I've actually never heard of that flower. Freesia? That's pretty. I'm writing that down because now I'm going to look that up. I bet you I've probably seen it before and I just don't know what it's called. Sometimes I do that, like my husband and I walk a lot in town. We live in Doylestown and we'll walk, and so many people have such beautiful gardens. Um, we have flowers too. Um, we have a townhouse, and so whatever the townhouse put in it originally, some of them are still there. Some of them my husband has added. I couldn't tell you what they were though, but they're pretty. He's the one with the green thumb. But yes, if you think something looks like another flower, absolutely, you can have it be that flower. And you can even make it look a little more like that flower if you know. Oh, freesia. Okay, they're not the okay. Hmm. Okay, I'm gonna look that up after this because now I'm curious what freesia is. That would make sense. Um, yes, so you want to take a look now. Make sure, you know, the space is filled pretty well. If you feel like you want to add any background petals, I almost said leaves. For some reason, I'm really thinking of leaves, probably because I'm working on our fall programs right now. So while everybody is in summer mode, I'm half in summer mode and half in fall mode. Okay, so we're now going to go back, right? Just like John Paul suggested, over here to just fill in this leaf right here. It's sort of like,
that's not what I meant.
oh, what did you mean? What did I miss?
The roses leaf was right over here to the left. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Oh, this one? We did this one. Maybe
Oh,
you
I
missed it.
well, I did not actually.
Oh, so that's going to come from this part here. Did
Great job.
you did this part?
Yeah, I did.
Okay. And so this, even though it looks like a petal, this is a leaf. I don't know if you've done this. So this is the leaf, even though it looks like a petal.
That looks like pale to this.
I'm gonna make it a little darker. So that should come right off of this petal shape right here.
Yeah.
And it breaks that border, right? So it breaks the border that we created here. Sorry to confuse you. But then we have another shape right here that we didn't put in. And so we're going to just add, basically, we're just going to add this like this. It's just a curve for right now. Later on, we will go back and make more details. But for now, we're just going to make a curve to fill that in. And then we're going to now come over here and start working our way up to finish the top portion of our drawing. And so we're going to come here first where we have this petal. We have this, and again, I made all of this up, so I apologize if they look like alien flowers. I was probably just thinking of flowers, flower details that I've seen.
What do you think?
Ooh, very nice.
Because
I
I got
really like your line work. I would almost like that as like a black and white or like stained glass, you know, where you have the borders nice and outlined. Which is ironic because one of the art programs I'm going to offer to the libraries in the fall is going to be a piece that looks like stained glass. Okay, so now we're going to come over here, right? And we're going to draw this shape, this overall shape. So it's kind of like almost like a shell. It kind of reminds me of a shell now that I'm looking at it. And so we're going to start around this part, and it's going to, again, break the border. So if you want, you can make almost like an eyeball shape or a football shape. And then we're going to create the details within and also on that shape, right? But again, this helps, excuse me, because we now have it in the right position. If you don't, you can adjust it. I'm kind of looking at mine too. And actually, I do have to adjust mine because we have this part of a flower that's going to be in there as well. And so now I'm going to make the left side here of that shape. And then we're going to kind of scallop the other side. So kind of curve it like this. And so I'm going to, like I said, I'm going to kind of make it a little bit darker so you can see it. And then very faint lines inside. And then we're going to make this flower. So again, I'm just going to show this up close. So basically with this one, it's sort of bulbous at the bottom, right? And then it starts to kind of become petal-like. And then it has little kind of tendrils in the middle. Okay. So let's do that. And in the meantime, I'm going to go really close again. All right, so right around here, and it's going to break the border. So we're going to start off kind of with that bulbous shape. Break the border. So what I did was kind of created a petal-like shape here. Another little petal shape next to it. And one here. And then in between is going to be kind of those tendrils with the kind of dots on the end. And then later on, we'll go back and, you know, we'll make more sort of more line work in the petal parts. Now, another made-up flower. So we're going to go with this shape right now, right here. And so again, it's right up against this shape that is sort of a rose. So I have a portion of a rose in this shape, but we're going to leave that alone for now. We'll go back to it because we already have it pre-drawn. I'm going to make this a little bit darker. So we're going to go up. And draw it out first. And then we have another section of it. Which are two petals, one here and one here. Kind of goes right up against it. Like so. And we're going to come up here to make the big rose. And so here again, we're going to start in the middle of the rose, but for this one, we're going to look at the overall shape, right? Because it's kind of in this area. So we drew this part of the rose, this petal here. So we're going to start here. And we're going to make sort of the basic shape of the rose. And then our leaf should be coming out here, breaking the border. Right? There's our leaf. And when you're ready, you can erase. Oops. Let me adjust my camera here. So this is our rose shape, but then we're going to go back in and we're going to make an oval in this part. And remember, your lines should be light because we're going to erase all of these lines for the most part when we go back in and make more of them, of the details. So let's go in here, right? We make our oval shape. Again, I'm going to show this up close. So what we just did is we kind of made this overall oval shape for the middle. Okay, we're now going to make it a little more realistic. So I'm going to go in really close. It's a little difficult. The center is a little difficult. Okay, so we have our oval shape. We're now going to come in and we're going to make this bump out a little bit and then erase that original line. So it now looks like that. Now, we're going to come over here, and where this line is, we're going to make a line, and it's going to go like this. It's going to kind of start here, curve around, and it's going to spiral smaller into our rose shape, and then have a little shape in the middle. So again, we start here, go around, go into an oval, and then make the center like that. Now that's going to bring us over here to make another petal. So we're going to start here, and we're making this part. So we're going to go like that. We're making the top part of the petal. And then you can make it go there. And then we're going to connect it to the other shape with a little line right there. Now we're going to leave that shape because we're now going to add this shape here of a petal. And so it's going to start here, go up, and curve. And now we go underneath right here, and we just make a curved line. And then underneath is going to be, the shading. And then we're going to come up here on the left. We're going to make a shape like this. And then in front of it, another shape like that. So we did this, and then this. And now we're going to finish off the rose. And basically what we're going to do, so we're now going to add this shape, and this shape. They are each individual kind of half ovals, maybe. Okay. So again, we start here. We have 1, 2, 3. One that looks a little bit more like a petal. And then we have one more. Mine is going a little close to the border here. I really should have used the ruler, but I'm just going to make it a little bit bigger. There we go. And then fix any lines that look like they don't belong.
I can't see. I can't see the top.
Oh, sorry.
That's
Thank
better.
you. I was fixing and forgot to move my camera. So thank you. Yeah, sure. Which rose part, Debbie? Like the center part? The inner. Sure. Yeah, so the inner part, what we're going to do, so you make like an oval shape. So basically, I'm going to turn it over and show you. So you're going to make the center part an oval shape. And then you're going to go over to the left and create a bump. So it's almost kind of kidney shaped. And then you're going to make a curved line on the right here. And you're going to make it look smaller as you're going inward like this. So you're going to then make another oval. Beautiful job, Paul. Oh my gosh.
Somebody missed it.
Yeah,
Oh dear.
beautiful. And then a smaller oval inside. And then curved line over here because we're going to make that a little more shadowy. And then you start to build your rose from there. So you start to look at your other petals. Staying within that shape. I hope that's helpful. But basically you start from the center and it's always, an oval, and if you wanted to simplify it, you could do the oval here, do an oval in the middle, and then sort of make two lines like that and make another oval in the middle. That's another way. And then you could, make your sort of your petal shapes off of that and kind of keep going around and add petals. I hope that's hopeful. Helpful. I said hopeful. I hope it's hopeful and helpful. Okay, so we're finishing up. So we're going to come over here finally, and we're going to make another daisy-like, right? So we're going to make the stem come out around here. And we're going to make sure that our daisy breaks the border. So we create the center of the daisy up here so that we can then start to make the petals, and it's just coming right from the center. feel like this one is sort of an easier shape to do.
More attention. I've got to go through some of this before we leave.
Been in that before. We're under something.
Put it with that bunch of receipts.
I am sorry, can you stay muted, Pat? Just because we're recording, I appreciate it. So now, after you've broken the border with the petals, you can now go in and create a very long sort of leaf shape here. And this one again, you can kind of see the middle of it. You can see right here, that's the middle of it. And then we're going to finally just add sort of some kind of grasses in this top left corner. Kind of like grasses, petals. Again, I was at the point where I was like, you know what, this needs to be filled in, but I haven't put any kind of grasses in. So I'm going to kind of make it look a little more kind of garden-like. And so kind of started making these shapes. And then added two more up above. So you can add, more or less grasses. If you feel like, you have parts that are, too open, you can then go back and adjust some of your leaves and your petals. But we're now going to lighten up all of our shapes. Well, I have to lighten mine because, I draw darker so you can all see.
Whoa, 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 whoa. On the left side of this, so I can get tall grass. Is that correct?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yep. Yeah, so we've got it's kind of like petals or grass, right? In the shape of petals. And then some individual kind of grasses here and here.
Oh, you don't have to show. I just need to know.
Oh, cool. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thank you. And then if you need to lighten up your drawing, because our next step is using our orange colored pencil. And what we're going to do is actually draw everything, including our border, with the orange. So now you're going to trace over everything, mostly the outside lines. We haven't done the shading yet, but I like to kind of trace over my border first using orange. And then I go back and I very lightly erase the pencil underneath. In some parts of this drawing, I kind of left the pencil in my original. Just kind of felt like it. But then you want to go back in and start to redraw all of your shapes using your orange. And this can kind of be a quick process in the sense of, you're kind of just retracing everything. Because then our next step is we're going to shade in around all of the flowers. And then we turn inward for the final shading, where some parts are a little bit darker. We create some texture. While you're retracing things, if you want to add like center lines to each of the petals, you can do that, but you can also just wait, because I will mention doing that. Just take your time and outline all of your drawn sections of the drawing. Takes a little while, but you've done the hardest part. Now it's really fun to go back when we start to shade and make it look more like almost like a bouquet. And then once you have everything drawn, you can start to shade in between all of the elements. So what I do is I kind of shade lightly first. And then go back and make things a little bit darker with the shading as it gets closer to the center of sort of the flowers. And I'll show you what I mean. First, sort of a light shading around all of the flowers will do. If you want, what you can do is you can kind of start to outline shade when it gets to like a petal, right? Like I'm sort of outlining and shading around the petal. And then I lightly shade the background. But sometimes, something will get a little washed out. And so you can sort of re-outline a little bit by just kind of shading a little more in the background up against the line work, because that's what we're going to be doing anyway when we go back. To make it stand out. But so our next step after we are done going over all of the lines in orange, we're then going around each element, meaning a petal, a leaf, and coloring in the background, orange, shading it in, shading, coloring, kind of coloring it first, kind of a light to medium light shade. I find this part the most relaxing because you don't really have to think about it. And like I always say, it's kind of like those adult coloring books. You just kind of color. And I know sometimes it's a challenge, somewhat of a challenge, right? To see, is that a petal? Is that background? So take your time. If you color in something that was a petal, it's okay. You can go back and make a darker line and redraw it. Or you can just have an extra petal. That's fine too. So your background should sort of look like this. And then you can start, shading a little darker in the corners, and then also starting to shade in each of the elements. And for some reason, I always like to start at the bottom. And this is where you can do a combination of things where you're now re-outlining the drawing again, each element, pressing a little darker with your colored pencil. And now you're also making shaded areas in each element. So you can look at what's happening here in the finished one. And basically, the parts that are darker are always sort of like, for instance, the center of the sunflower here. It's darker around the rim, right? And it's darker darker shading, right? Where each of the petals is sort of coming from the center. And then it usually gets lighter on the tips of things. And so you do that either by coloring in lighter or just making strokes that are very fine. So what I'm talking about is, like, for instance, this petal here, right? So it's outlined, but it's not real dark. And then it gets darker because of the folds, those individual lines in the petal. And then there's some shading around there because there would be, because it's sort of kind of bending away from the flower, there's some shading. Also, the sunflower has shading around it. This is funny. My husband said this looks like a donut, and now I can't unsee it. Right, Gene? Like, I never saw it before. And he was like, why is there a donut in the center? And I looked at it and I said, that's the center of the sunflower. And I was like, now I can't unsee the donut. So I thought I would give you guys a laugh. I thought that was funny. He just walked up as I was doing it like last year and he's like, huh, a donut. But anyway, so I'm gonna do the donut now. Make it darker around this part. I kind of retracing over it. And then shading a little lighter as I'm getting toward the center. But then I'm going to make individual kind of lines to make it look like the texture of the sunflower. And I literally just, I take my pencil and I create little strokes going in different directions. Then I might go back and make it a little darker again around the edge. And then obviously in this, even the center, right? It's a little darker in two sections, and then it gets a little lighter. So I start off with each petal and I make light strokes and then go back in and press harder. And as I'm making light strokes, I also shade by lifting my pencil, this is the colored pencil, lifting the colored pencil up for each individual stroke, and you get shading. And then you can always go back and make it darker, but it's harder to make it lighter, right? I mean, you can erase it, but it's always easier to go lighter first. And even when drawing, always easier to go lighter first, because you can always go back and make something darker. You know, the other thing is too, especially with petals, remembering that when something is kind of like collapsing on itself and there's an inside, the inside is always darker because it would be in shadow because it's folded over. So I don't know if that helps with each of these petals. You know, it always helps to think, where would the light be hitting? Because the lighter parts are going to be kind of where your imagined light is going to be. You know, for this one, I kind of made it up, but I look at it like the light is hitting kind of on the outer edge of things. So, and it's always darker when a shape is on top of it. So if a leaf is on top of another leaf, or a petal is on top of another petal, there's going to be a shadow there. So again, I don't know if my rambling helps or confuses you. I'm hoping it helps a little bit. And you can, you know, you can try this out by observing, you know, especially nature. You know, go out into the sunlight and try to draw a flower and look to see where the sunshine is hitting that flower and where you can see shadows. You know, just take a pencil and sort of do what we're doing. You know, you could just do, you know, quickly. It doesn't have to be something real detailed, but if you observe things like that, you can start to remember so that when you go back and do another drawing or even a painting or a sketch, where some of the lighter parts and darker parts should be. I mean, not always, because depending if you're, you know, copying off of somebody's artwork or something, they may have, you know, made their own light part of it, but they usually follow those rules because that's what makes it look realistic. You know, and as you're shading, I also then go back in because things get, you know, shaded kind of the same tone. I then usually go back in and put my darker parts in again. You know, I retrace some parts that I want to stand out. Or maybe I'll go back and darken up some parts of the shading. And again, usually with the shading, so I kind of, again, retrace around, like for instance here, around the stem of the daisy, and I kind of do a sketchy outline or a shaded outline. That's what I did for this drawing, to kind of make each section stand out. So it's more like an illustration rather than it being completely realistic. It is now 8 o'clock, and I'm wondering, I know that we still have shading to do, but I'm wondering if we can show what we have, and I can leave you to the rest of the shading on your own. And if you have any questions or concerns, what I can also do is I can record myself shading the rest of this and send it in with the library. If anybody wants me to do that, you can put in the chat, yes. Because I can do that if that is helpful. And I'm going to remove my spotlight. Okay, perfect. All right. I'm going to do that though. I don't want to keep everybody too much longer. So what I'm going to do is, you know, I'm going to record the rest of, the ending part and also send it in with the library when the library sends you the recording. So you'll get 2 recordings, probably another 10 minutes or so of finishing this up so that you can see each individual section. So I'm going to stop the recording.